There are celebrations across Iran today as jubilant Iranians are praising the nuclear deal. And that joy hasn't quite made its way to our country yet. In fact, some have called it the worst diplomatic agreement in the history of the United States.
Yeah, critics say Iran got everything they wanted, while the United States and everyone else got empty promises and no way of verifying or enforcing the agreement. Caitlin Burke reports.
There were celebrations in the streets of Iran after negotiators announced the agreement. But a different reaction from many here in the U.S., the nuclear deal igniting a new political battle between President Obama and critics of the deal.
It may be the worst diplomatic agreement in the history of the United States.
It looks very much like they made a worse deal than even we had feared.
The agreement lays out a plan to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities, at least for now. Iran will voluntarily cut back most of its nuclear activities for the next 10 years, and they'll submit to managed international inspections. In return, the U.S. and its allies lift the crippling sanctions placed on Iran's economy. Critics say it's a very good deal for the Iranian regime, but a very bad deal for America and the rest of the world. They say it can't be verified or enforced. Iran hasn't agreed to anytime, anywhere inspections, isn't dismantling its nuclear program, and will likely use the windfall to fund terrorism.
So what's the alternative? The alternative is to, what, go to war immediately? Bomb them? Sanction them further? Well, wait, no, you can't sanction them further.
The plan now goes before the Senate, and Republicans are already unified in opposition.
Ending Iran's nuclear program was supposed to be the point of these talks in the first place. What's already clear about this agreement is that it will not achieve or even come close to achieving that original purpose.
Israel, too, is voicing its opposition to the agreement.
Israel is not bound by this deal with Iran because Iran continues to seek our destruction. We will always defend ourselves.
The White House announced that President Obama has assured Netanyahu that the U.S. continues to support Israel. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Well, it looks like this is a pathway for Iran to get a nuclear weapon, because all under the deal, as I understand it, all of these things come off in 10 years on their nuclear program, 8 years on their ability to acquire ballistic missile technology. So we're looking at an arms race. Is Saudi Arabia going to be next? Are they going to pursue one? Because right now they're involved in a proxy war with Iran in Yemen. So are we looking at a nuclear Middle East? And if we are, well, now more than ever, Israel is depending on the U.S. Christian community to speak out on its behalf. And this week, the largest pro-Israel organization in the country promised to do just that. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Since its founding nearly 10 years ago, Christians United for Israel has grown to more than 2 million members. And as Eric Stackelbeck reports, they came from across the country to a summit here in Washington to stand with the Jewish state and against the nuclear deal with Iran.
Good afternoon, everybody.
With the Obama administration and other world powers agreeing to a much criticized nuclear deal with the Iranian regime, Israel is counting on its friends in America to step up and speak out. This week in Washington, Christians United for Israel did not disappoint. With Iran marching towards a nuclear weapon and ISIS marching towards its borders, Israel is in a very precarious position. That's why thousands of Christian supporters of the Jewish state came here to Washington to make their voices heard. CUFI founder Pastor John Hagee announced that his group is opening an office in Washington, D.C. to mobilize politically on issues affecting Israel. The CUFI Action Fund's first priority is to press Congress to stop the Iran nuclear deal.
Our mission for the future is to defend the state of Israel and the Jewish people in a world where the Jewish people are being targeted for assassination.
Hagee was joined by several Republican candidates in calling the Iran agreement an historic mistake for Israel and America.
There's no way to have a legitimate framework with people who are continued sponsors of state terrorism.
We need to have a deeper debate about this and a recognition that past is prologue. History is full of examples of when you enable people or regimes that don't embrace democratic values without any concessions, you get a bad result.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also addressed the summit via satellite, warning that radical Islam is on the march against both Christians and Jews.
Friends, the Middle East is imploding all around us. States that have existed for a century are disintegrating. I've said it before, and I'll say it once again tonight. Israel has no better friend than America, and America has no better friend than Israel.
With an agreement reached between the West and Iranian leaders, Congress will now weigh in. Israel's ambassador to the United States encouraged CUFI members to continue to make their case to lawmakers.
Last year, as Hamas missiles rained down from Gaza on Israel, I stood at this podium to ask you to stand with Israel during war. Tonight, I ask you to stand with Israel to prevent war.
A regional war that could rage out of control if Iran acquires nuclear weapons and sparks a nuclear arms race among the Muslim nations of the Middle East. Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News, Washington.
Attorneys representing the family of an imprisoned American pastor in Iran are calling the nuclear agreement unconscionable. The deal leaves behind Pastor Saeed Abedini, who is being held in Iran for his Christian faith. Pastor Abedini's wife, Nagme, says she's deeply disappointed with the outcome. She's now pleading with Congress, asking lawmakers to help bring her husband home. 3 other Americans are also either imprisoned or missing in Iran. An investigation into Planned Parenthood alleges the abortion provider has been selling the body parts of aborted babies. New undercover footage released by the Center for Medical Progress shows Dr. Deborah Nuke describing, quote, disposal practices to actors posing as buyers. Nuke is Planned Parenthood's Senior Director of Medical Services.
We've been very good at getting parts on liver because we know that, so I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to see if I can get it intact.
Planned Parenthood says the video is heavily edited and they're not selling baby parts, rather getting reimbursed for tissue donations, a practice that's legal under federal law if the mother agrees. However, the controversy centers around taking that tissue from partial birth abortions, which is a federal felony.
Federal abortion ban is a law, and laws are up to interpretation. So if I say on day one I do not intend to do this, what ultimately happens doesn't matter.
The video is part of a nearly 3-year-long investigation. Pro-life groups want Congress to take action. You can watch tomorrow's 700 Club for more on this story. Porn is just prostitution with a camera. That was the message at a Capitol Hill briefing on the ties between sex trafficking, prostitution, and pornography. As Paul Strand reports, experts revealed an America where the vast majority of men consume porn, making for an ever more violent culture.
Porn is an often scary, toxic wasteland these days, connected to prostitution and sex trafficking, and often is violent and victimizing. At this Capitol Hill Symposium for Congress, experts talked about what researchers see these days.
When they studied 50 of the top-selling, top-watched scenes in porn, 90% of them had some form of sexual, physical, or emotional violence against women.
Just as cigarettes are poison for the lungs, researchers are finding pornography is poison for the eyes and the soul and the sexual conscience.
All of these forms of sexual exploitation are not happening in a vacuum, but really are connected, and pornography is one of the root causes of this.
Porn users should know
90% of prostitution is online. Traffickers advertise women for sale using pornography today. It's a way to traffic women.
Users get hurt too. Cornelia Anderson fights adult and child sexual harm. She says many adults describe porn ruining their real-life relations.
I'm looking at that and I'm getting aroused by that. And I suddenly find I can't be aroused by the real thing, by the real person.
It can especially mess up children, who these days are first exposed to adult pornography and perversions at 11 or 12.
Unprotected sex, sex with anybody, multiple partner sex. Not only do they not know how to process that very well, but they begin to believe that this is how they're supposed to behave when they go on their first dates.
And then there are those in the pornography.
The same things happen to women who are pornographized, trafficked, and prostituted. They're recruited in many of the same ways, the same kind of violence and coercion channel them into the sex industry.
We are seeing increased demand for prostituted and trafficked women and children, increased child sexual abuse.
Many people think pornography is just a private, harmless activity. But as this symposium showed, pornography has ties to prostitution and sex trafficking, and the harm goes wide and deep across the society. Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
Thanks, Paul. It is being called true exploration and a phenomenal achievement. NASA's New Horizons spacecraft flyby around Pluto swept within 7,700 miles of the celestial body at 31,000 miles an hour. The almost 10-year-old tour now makes the U.S. the only nation to explore our entire solar system. It may also restore Pluto's honor. Scientists say they've already seen the planet is bigger than thought when it was demoted to dwarf planet status. And Gordon, 9 years and more than 3 billion miles of travel, quite an achievement.
It is quite a technical achievement, and all of this going on today, it's good to look to the heavens and realize how great God is. But this is an amazing achievement for NASA when you consider it took 4.5 hours for that signal traveling at the speed of light to reach Earth. That is absolutely incredible that technically it worked, and we are seeing these amazing pictures now. Horizon is now on to the Kuiper Belt, and so there's more discoveries awaiting it, and we look forward to it.